my black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white. Yeah, it's black and white, we're just black and white. It's my black and white, it's my black and white scarf.
Good evening, welcome to the Turn In podcast on a night where we've been probably less embarrassed by the result and more covered by the fact that other teams have dropped points as well. So we're going to bring in the master of the moment, Chris Clark. Chris, I was on last week's show. I came on 2 weeks ago and I was dreading the fact that I might have jinxed it by talking up these. And in fairness to yourself, with all the expertise you have, you did warn me not to do it. But
we did. Me and Steph said that you jinxed us too.
Yeah, I have a habit going off on one and getting ahead of myself. But I stick by it. I stand by what I said. But tonight we just never really. We played Wexford earlier in the season a 3-2 match we just spoke about, and you'd Dobbs and Rowe running riot against us and giving us all sorts of problems. Tonight probably wasn't that kind of game, but it was a game where it was almost like an end of season game. It was kind of you would almost forgive them for thinking the work was done and the job was done and the result was almost in the bag. And I don't think they thought like that, but it kind of gave that kind of vibe to it.
I think from post-match last week when Kieran came out and just said, how many players he was going to be missing, how many key players he was going to be missing in this, and that he felt that the squad was already stretched as it was. To have to go down and play with a certain number of first team players, you knew this was going to be a tricky fixture straight away. And then thoughts had come back to that game last year where we probably got out of there with the skin of our teeth with a last minute winner. And you're thinking you take that again all day long. And then the team comes out and you see the 5 changes in. Cherry's back in goal, no Minogue in the team. You're kind of wondering what was going on there. O'Keefe, you were kind of expecting him to come in for Vinnie Leonard, who's away on under 17 duty. Groom, Garbutt back in for his first start of this season and the first start since the Shamrock Rovers match last year, which we were also impressed with him. And then Dean Ebbe obviously going up front in replace of Owen Kenny. So you're bringing 5 new faces in, and maybe that first 10 minutes of the match probably showed that. Probably, McCormick had a really good chance in the first couple of minutes. Peter Cherry down with a good save for that. And then Dean Ebbe with another good chance. But it felt like the two teams were kind of just sounding themselves out. Like I said, it had that weird sort of a vibe to it that maybe a lot of our players weren't as comfortable around each other. Keith in the back playing with Mayowa, kind of getting used to that. And then Dean Ebbe tucked in on, he seemed to be in the number 10 role again, maybe. Garbutt over on the right and Horgan left. But, it just seemed like it was taking us a while to get going on something there tonight. And maybe that's the vibe it had. So many changes just has that effect, and we're ultimately coming away from Wexford with disappointment. One elation, you're probably thinking that, okay, we got a point out of it when we didn't play great. And then you see the other result and you think, oh, really should have took, if we had taken some points, you get the gap back to 8 again. It's down to 6 with 6 games, it's, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this the hard way, so it seems.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of alluding at the start. I kind of thought, like, you're right, like it was like they're sounding each other out, but it was also like we've mentioned probably on every podcast this year, the squad depth. The squad, although the change have been made tonight, we probably haven't made that many changes in a long time. We probably haven't been forced to make many changes like that in a long time. You're talking your 5 or 6 changes tonight, and one being Peter Cherry, obviously in nets as well. But we had kind of probably waxed lyrical maybe too much about this squad depth that the lads had, and maybe tonight it showed that did they have the squad depth? Can the boys come in and play? I think just the game that was in it. We're travelling down to Wexford. I think we almost had a situation where it felt like I said at the start, it felt like an end of the season, but almost like a pre-season game. We hadn't really played each other all season. The results in the past kind of didn't really factor into it. We kind of just, like Helen had said there, lackluster. Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. I mean, we can't be giving out too much, I suppose. We've gone away from home. We've kept a clean sheet. We haven't scored. We've had one or two chances. Wexford, in fairness, that had probably the opening chance of the goal game after 2 or 3 minutes. But I mean, in the grand scale of things, yes, you would have liked to take advantage of the other results, but it's probably just as well blessing that those results have gone that way as well. Whereas, that's that little bit of luck we've been talking about all season. Dundalk seem to be getting a little bit of rub of the green when it comes to these kind of things. And maybe probably, I wouldn't call it a blip. I would just say, look, it's one of them. It's first division football. These are results you're going to have to get. These are teams you're going to play against if you want to win this league. You won't get them all your own way every week where you're scoring your 4 and your 5 goals. But I just think we had to just kind of belt in tonight and see was there going to be half chances. And unfortunately, when they did come, we just didn't take them. And it's just, I don't think it's a massive problem. But, you want to get on there. You want to be hitting the ground running with the break coming up as well. You want to be kind of... You kind of want to get those. It's not so much the 3 points. I know that sounds crazy. It's more a performance where you look like you're going to score at every chance. Whether you might concede or not, it's a different story. But the points in the bag is great. But you want that bit of performance, a little bit of, like Dean Ebby's chances. You have a Ruby coming into the game as well. Dean Ebby playing in the 10. But he's had 2 chances, one gone across the box, which I don't think you could believe on the chat we have that it didn't go into the back. But those are going to come away, unfortunately. And the next couple of weeks, the lads are just going to have to get past that stage of, what ifs. They're going to have to really hammer home these chances and take advantage of the gap that they have at the top.
Yeah, like I'm just keeping an eye across the Instagram there. Stephen Todd probably summed it up right. It's one less match, which is the right way to look at it. It's a clean sheet, one less match, and the shouts so far for man of the match seemed to be O'Keefe. So that probably tells you a lot. Where we were strongest was probably, the likes of O'Keefe spraying balls around because Mayo had that kind of height advantage, I think, over Mikey Rowe and anyone else up there. It kind of, it meant that every knockdown O'Keefe could get on and was spraying some good passes. And it was probably, although he was never signed as a centre half, he seems to actually be playing some of his best football at the moment right there. At the time we were stuck for centre halves, it seems to be a blessing in disguise that he's come in there, and it's been a smooth enough transition as well for him coming in there. But look, it's disappointing. I think, like I say, if you take out Ben McCormick's early chance, and we'll probably come on to it later on, Mikey Rowe's chance in the second half, every other chance really kind of fell to Dean Ebbe tonight. And you'd like to think perhaps that's the hard thing for Dean Ebbe, that he has probably found himself, behind Rowan Vaughan up front at times, and his game time has been quite limited. So when you come on and you get a chance like you had tonight, it's hard to get right up to that level. And you think between, like I said, that one at the back post and the other one-on-one in the second half, you'd be looking for him to maybe try to convert one of those. And perhaps if he was in the team more often and had more minutes in the legs, he'd be sharper and would take one of them. So I think that's the disadvantage sometimes about having the riches that you would probably say over the past few games where we were banging in goals and it seemed great. But, not everyone's getting all the minutes that they would want. And then when you do get your chance, it's hard to get up to speed sometimes. And we'll just have to lick our wounds and come back and say, look, we'll take the point, we'll take a clean sheet. And as Stephen Todd said, we'll take one less game. It was 6 points with 7 games. Now it's 6 points with 6 games. And it sets up this Bray match on next week in a fairly big light.
Yeah, many times this season have I mentioned Bray as a bogey team in Premier Division football over the last couple of seasons, and now pure luck we come down to it in this kind of game. Like you mentioned there, the riches that we have, and obviously at anybody who'd listened to Kilduff's interview, I think it's about last Friday night, Saturday night, was going on with the international clubs. Our riches and our, what the lads have done and created there, are we a victim now of having these young kids, these young lads getting these call-ups? And I mean, rightly or wrongly, look, was there an hour for the game being pushed maybe to Sunday? Maybe, should we have enough in the tank? I mean, ideally you'd like to think so. Hindsight, yes. Look, obviously, you would have preferred these players to be there, but we're a victim of these young lads, being given a chance, and rightly so, by Kilduff and Ken Kieran. And look at Liam Burns, who's the part of the club. But I don't want to use it as an excuse, and I don't think it is an excuse. I just think those lads are in serious form. The consistency of those boys over the course of the season has obviously found them in a position of international call-ups for the North and for the Republic. And it's great, although it's great for us to see. You don't want it to happen again. You don't. Once off is enough. You don't really want to go down this road of the last kind of 3-4 games, and there's, even if there was, God forbid, an injury, we might look back on tonight's drop points.
Yeah,
I don't think we will. I don't think we're down that. I think we get enough in the tank to get going. But it's just when you mention the riches that we have, we almost paid for it in many ways tonight.
Yeah, look, and this is the thing. Like, it's probably a conversation that's going to have to be had within the first division, exactly like it had in the Premier Division. That eventually, so many players got a call up that something had to happen, and now we've got an international break in the Premier Division, and you wouldn't have seen that. You wouldn't have foreseen that being a situation a few years back.
Yeah,
what's happened in the first division now, in particular since Brexit and stuff coming in, it's a real fertile playground for younger players now.
Yeah.
So what you're probably going to see, and we had this issue before at the start of the season, I think it was, I'm going to say Longford at home, and I think they actually missed out on 1 or 2 players as well that night. So 2 teams happened to come up against each other who were both hampered by international call-ups. So it was kind of, okay, you're okay to kind of play each other sort of a way. But you would also think, I think Finn Harps got hit with a few as well, that, the more often you see this, you're going to have to start postponing or moving fixtures around and play them up to free up lads to get it, because at the end of the day, we had to go into this game, we ended up with 5 players short from our starting lineup tonight. And I know not all of them were down to international call-ups, but it just goes to show as well that, if you're going into this run, we're talking, it was down to 7 games before tonight. You want your best squad available for them. And we had to go and play a fixture with, not one arm behind our back, but you know what I mean? Without your best hand that you could play tonight. And, always surprised that we missed the opportunities and stuff then tonight, and maybe our play wasn't as fluid as it's been over the past few weeks. No, that's exactly what happens. But yeah, I think
it's not a case of it. When we are Premier Division, or when you have your Shamrock Rovers or your Shell, they've got the youth system where boys have been called up, but they're not directly maybe affecting the first team. They're in and about the first team, but these lads are 1 to 11. So there was an argument maybe for, Killer probably had a case of, like, you're right. I mean, the way the league is now, the way it's changed with Brexit and, like you said, being fertile ground, they're going to have to look at this. Look, you're hoping it's not a massive problem, but it's only a matter of time before it comes around again, and it won't just be us. Obviously with the Premier Division with a bit of luck next year, but, it'll be the same kettle of fish, because the young players in this league will go and play at the lower level. I use that, but they're going to play at the lower to get game time from the Premier Division teams, and if they're going to get the call up, then this is what's going to affect them. And I think it's you are a victim of kind of trying to blood these young fellas and get them in and get them involved and get them on minutes, and then for all the success, we kind of seem to lose out of them. But I mean, you'd like to think that I don't really want to use it as an excuse. It's out there. It's an issue that we face, but there should be enough boys there to get the result in. I think it's just one of those nights where, I have a habit of saying if we'd been there from midnight, we wouldn't have scored. I think we would have, but I think it's just one of those days where, a Dean Debby chance, I mean, how many times has he given him a chance? Nobody just falls away. If he's a half a yard ahead of himself, split second, he gets the one that goes across the box. His one-on-one, it's bread and butter from Norman. It's just one of those days. Keith Ward's come on as well later in the game, has 2 free kicks, knocked a fella out, can't get the ball in the back of the net. It's just, it's a game where, and look, take nothing away from Wexford, but I mean, we're obviously going to look back and use the kind of, we didn't have such and such, we didn't have such, but it raises the issue. We're not saying it's an excuse to drop points at Wexford. We're just raising the issue that, you got to give a bit of credit to the clubs who are trying to blood these young fellas and get them in. But you'd like to think, like, Sean had said there, you'd like to think we should have got a result tonight. And we did, in fairness. Look, it's, at the end of the day, it's a clean sheet. We haven't been beaten. We haven't conceded. You know, like Stephen had said, you know, it's 6.6 games. You know, we're still in a comfortable position, I suppose. But again, we are staring in the barrel of a couple of games coming up where just could be just a bit edgy. It'd be definitely a good one against Bray. It'll definitely be one of those games for everybody to watch. If you haven't been involved this season, now's the chance to get involved quick.
Yeah, like the run in here should kind of captivate everybody, and it should help kind of pull a big crowd up to Oriel, especially on Friday for it. I think the other thing to look at is possibly with all the changes and moving around so many wide people as well. I think a lot of the goals we saw against Kerry, definitely a lot of the goals we scored over in Limerick against Treaty as well. A lot of them were kind of set pieces or wide balls played in. Yeah. That fluidity was not there tonight. And you got to think that's down to so many changes and you know, the way the patterns of play and everything that we've been working to over the past few weeks, which has worked well in scoring goals. We were lamenting last week that, you know, we continued to score goals, but let some in, and then tonight we've stopped them going in one end, but then it stifled us on the other. But I think a patterns of play, the fluidity of play that we've seen over the past few weeks didn't seem to be there. Whether that was what Wexford done to stop us playing, or it could have been, you know, just due to the change of personnel on the pitch as well. That bite didn't seem to be there. That getting the ball out wide and whipping in real. But I thought some of our deliveries tonight were poor enough. In particular, like Paul Martin was pretty comfortable under a high ball. We needed to think of something like any ball being bent towards goal was nullified tonight, because he's big and brave keeper. You know, we've seen it for long enough when I think he was at Waterford for a while, wasn't he? Before Sam Sargent came in and that. So I think what we should have been doing is, you know, angling balls out wide or you know, bending away from goal so he can come out and because we have seen that Wexford defence of late. You know, it's not the strongest defence that we'll come up against. So in that sense, I think we just needed, and this didn't help us halfway through the second half. Obviously losing Daryl Horgan, who we've come down to, who's been instrumental in scoring so many goals of late, but also setting up a few then as well. So to lose that element out tonight, and, you know, I'm lamenting poor deliveries, and I'm sure him missing in that second half had a huge element up to that as well. But I think it's probably one that Ken and Kieran are just going to have to take on the chin. They haven't lost ground, and that's the main thing going in on this run-in. We keep the unbeaten run as well going into this run-in, which is important. We haven't lost that ground. It's as it was. And I think that's what you take. You take it. Look, we probably had the better chances on the night. We've kept a clean sheet, and you get back up the motorway as quick as you can. It's not that far from the ground, to be fair.
No, it's not. No, it's a straight one. It's a lovely straight one. We've done it many times. Yeah. I think it's you know, if we're talking about the game itself, yeah, you're right. I mean, you probably don't realise how good, and like I'm trying to say this without taking away from the boys around the field tonight. You probably don't realise what Owen Kenny has done. If we take Owen Kenny, for instance, you know, you don't realise the running he does. I mean, I know, look, I hold my hand up. We got at him at the start of the year, maybe not enough goals, maybe you're expecting a bit more, but then you realise, right, well, he's not been playing as a centre forward. He's kind of playing it right. He's playing as a 10 sometimes, but you don't realise how much running and how much ground the man covers. I mean, like, he's an absolute, he's solid as they come. And, you know, like, were we missing that? Possibly. But then again, if we're not passing the ball properly, and Owen Kenny doesn't figure tonight either, you got to get the ball down and play it. You know, I think probably Wardy's come on, and, you know, look, it's one of them games. I'm trying not to sound cliche, but it is one of them games where you'll take it. You know, at this stage of your season, if it was 2 or 3 games ago, you wouldn't probably be as bothered. You're in the low single figures now of matches to go, and you really don't want to be having games like this, especially with Bray in the corner, albeit at Oriel. But, you know, it's one of them games, I suppose, you think that the result tonight, my head is automatically gone now to Cove at the end of the season. That's back in radar vision now, because, if you were to drop any more points, like I know Danny says they are, Cove aren't going to win all the games. I mean, they've shown it tonight, they're drawn against Kerry, but just as well. I mean, if they had won that, the gap shortens. We're probably more like coming home. Probably Jason Crawley's probably walking home. Probably doesn't want to drive with anybody on the way home from the game. But it's, it kind of comes on the horizon a little bit closer, because that, yes, you've got the 6 point gap, but it only takes one wee slip off, one strike of a ball to kind of bring that gap to within, a touching distance of a Cove. Like, I mean, you look at, if you were talking about goals conceded there, like Cove's goals for them, they're not even that far from us. There's very little between us and Cove when it comes to goals scored, goals conceded. They're capable of putting on a run. We just can't. We probably can't have another night like tonight. It hasn't been a disaster, but we just can't really. We got to be putting teams to bed. We can't really be having a situation where we're coming away again thinking, if we had got this chance, if we had got that, you're into real business end of the season now, and they've got to put that. People might call it a blip. I wouldn't. I just call it a tough night. It's just one of those games, first division matches, and that's the only one. They won't get another one. That's their last bit tonight. They can't repeat that tonight again. They have to win all the matches. Like, I know what Danny's saying, if they win against Bray, it's almost done. But we probably wouldn't be saying that tonight. If we'd have won tonight, it wouldn't be almost done, I don't think. I think we're still a couple of games away yet, and there's still possibly a twist in the season to come, albeit you don't want to go the Cove still with that.
No. And I'm just looking at Cove's fixtures. So they're at home to Treaty next. Away to Wexford. So if Wexford could repeat this, much like Kerry have done tonight, that could be a big help to us. Then they're at home to Harps, and then they are at home to Bray, before going away to Longford, and then it's R1. So I still think that Cove Bray match, 3rd of October, that could be, depending on obviously what we do, that could be a bit. But you're hoping that Wexford away there on Friday the 19th. That could be something in that you'd like to think. That you'd hope if Wexford put up, I suppose, the performance we've seen tonight, they could easily do something there. Harps have been kind of in and out so far this year. It's hard to say, and they've been very inconsistent, liable to pull out of something, but equally liable, to come away empty-handed there. So if it was up in Ballybuffet, I'd say maybe something different. But the fact that it's down to Wexford, maybe that might change it. But it'll be interesting to see. It's in a weird way, like you just said. We've been talking a little bit about Bray and Bray coming into this. Bray are now pivotal in what's going to happen on this in our next fixture, and then in 1, 2, 3, 4 fixtures time for Cove Ramblers. So Bray have a lot to say in this run-in, which worries me, to tell the truth.
Yeah, and I know, considering we lambasted them at the start of the year, because I'm really sure I almost said word for word, if I can remember, that I couldn't understand how they even got the playoffs last year. They're one of the worst teams I've watched, and here we are. We're 5
To be fair, I think that was after the 3-0 victory, which was one of their first on their pitch, and they had played so many away from home, and they clearly didn't take to their pitch that well at that stage. Yeah. But obviously that they settled in, got used to the pitch, and their performances are much better. Also, when you get a couple of the Farage eyes in, it's also all right. Kind of makes it go. And I seen Justin scored a real cracker there tonight for them. But look, that's not going to be easy for us, because I do feel that they have recruited extremely well. They've also had good news for a new takeover there. The first division seems to be rife with new investment and takeover. I don't know if they come this far up the M1
football stage.
Yeah, I don't know if any of these investors come this far up the M1, but it'd be interesting to see if any of them are interested in coming there. You'd like to think, and this is the thing, when you think about, Cove at the start of the year had massive investment in. Throughout the season now, we've had investment into and takeovers in the likes of Athlone and now in Bray as well. So you would, from my reading on that, is then there's plenty of eyes on this first division when it comes to investment, and you think of how much Premier Division teams these days are investing into their teams, and a lot of them have big sugar daddies running what's happening there. You know, obviously Shamrock Rovers have European money as well, but they also have Dermot Desmond there, who's always good for a couple of quid, and then he'll sell them back to Celtic and make his money back. You know, you've Gareth Kelleher at Pats, and you know, Derry aren't short a few quid with a billionaire owner. So to try to be even in that conversation, obviously Shell's with European money now as well, but to be even in that conversation on the top half of the Premier Division, you have to have deep pockets.
Yeah.
So, and you could say, look, I know Cork threw a lot of money at their team over, say, the past 2 years to get promoted and get where they are. And there never really seemed a plan of action of what Cork were, and chop and change and managers and everything else that's happened. I think now you look at it and you would say for a team like Dundalk to survive in the Premier Division, we will need some sort of investment. And how that looks, I don't know. I'm sure John Temple is probably thinking his valuation of what he would require for somebody to invest into Dundalk FC goes up considerably if we are promoted. So he's probably rightly holding his cards close to his chest right now. But it'd be interesting to see. Just I've never known a time where I've seen so much investment in the first division, especially overseas investment. You know, Kerry, Athlone, Bray this week. There's been a lot, and whatever happened with Cove at the start of the year, and I actually am unsure of who even owns Cove these days, but there's a lot of overseas investment, and you'd like to think we seem to be, you know, probably when you look at all the teams in the first division, we are probably the most illustrious history anyway. And we'd like to think we can maybe add something to that for this year, but it's going to take an investment of some sort, I would say, to be secure in the Premier Division if we were to make it there. If not, to do another charge in this division next year will also take, because you got to think how much stronger will a lot of these other teams who have investment. I mean, I don't think we thought at the start of the year that Athlone would be where they are, you know, considering they were throwing money around. It was just completely wrong, it turned out, in what they're doing. But you'd like to think, you know, with new owners, that won't be the case. Bray already invested very well this year. They're going to be stronger next year. Cove could be stronger next year as well. And who's going to come down from their Premier Division? So there's a real sliding doors moment here. And either way, either side of that door is an investment, I find. It may be needed. So that's probably, you know, you can't think that far ahead because promotion's not secured, and these discussions and turns and twists go one way or the other, and depending on where we are at the end of the season. So I think there's a lot of work for John Temple and that to do at the end of the season, one way or the other, I think.
Yeah, and even when you look at, you know, even if you're taking, like we're going off probably the match here at the minute, but even if you look at, you know, I think it was something shared in our chat there, the Sligo Rovers, they have funding, you know, like that, like they're like, I just checked their stat, they're like 38 points, like they're almost rock bottom in the first division. They're not. Cork have obviously propped them up a little bit, but they're right there, they're ninth in the first division, albeit on, I think there's a bit of goal difference there to come into it as well, but the money they raise, you know, we as a club tend not to raise that amount of capital, you know, in a year. We tend not to do a lot of, it's not that we don't do a lot of, we just don't seem to have that bit of red, that kind of bit of, you know, kind of help, I suppose. That's probably the best way of putting it. You know, you're going to, I don't think people realize the injection that's going to be needed. I mean, you'd like to think it's already been discussed, but many times we spoke halfway through a podcast season about, you know, we think it's been discussed and we'd like to think this and it's not. You know, I know when we got relegated, we were almost out of business. We would have, I think we said on a podcast, we would have probably taken 2 years down here. You know, you would have probably happily said, right, well, let's do 2 years down here if we have to, if we can't get promoted. But now we find ourselves on the cusp of it, having a great season. And I think, you know, it needs to be highlighted now if we do go up. It's not even so much, you know, it's not even so much improving the squad. It's improving the whole club as as a balloon of, you know, you got to get the potential. You got to get that kind of, you know, I sound like I'm talking post peak six when they kind of ran amok here, but you need someone to come in. Like you say, the investment is massive. The investment in lower league football and European football. When peak six took over, and I don't want to go back too far, they seen it as a gateway into the European market. That a business heads will probably look at it the same way. Now, I think the likes of Kerry and Cove, there's a longer road for the likes of them because they don't have the fan base that we would have. But I do think that there is going to be something needed. There is going to be something a little extra, unless there's something in the pipeline we don't know about. But, you know, you don't want to be dampering anything. You don't want to be kind of telling people to kind of lower expectations or anything. But in order to, if you want to sign that gem of a player, if you want to get maybe one midfielder in for next year, you're going to have to. Dundalk badge alone might not do it anymore, where it used to be the spot to play football. And that's a culture we have to create at the club. We got to say this is where you come and this is what you want to play for. But there also has to be finances there to pay for these boys. I think, you know, the club we've a long road ahead of us, but you know, obviously the most important thing is getting it over the line. But just when you mentioned the fundraising, you look at Sligo, probably one of the best fundraising clubs in the country. They find themselves right at the very bottom of the Premier Division. So, you know, it's just something that to bear in mind for everybody when we out. I know there is different fan bases, trust this kind of thing, and you know, but you know, I think
the interesting thing though, Gally, is that we're talking about this, and you know, our 1 year anniversary or whatever way you want to put it, to you know, we were on a countdown and you know, standing in a car park not knowing if we had a club anymore, to be nearly 12 months on from that day, which we'll probably talk about closer after the Bray match because it's closer to that date. But I think it's amazing to think where we are. But also the things that
I don't think many other clubs. I think only Dundalk could have done it. I don't think any other clubs could have done it without changing something, without the whole name being changed, without the town, the club name being changed, something drastic. I think only Dundalk could have done it at the time.
Yeah, and credit due to, you know, everyone who did step in then, you know, to get us over the line on that, to keep the club there. It's just funny. Probably what got us there was a lack of investment, and now we're talking about investment again, coming down the line. That's our talk again, which is kind of very circular at this time of year for us again, but we're probably talking about in a different light. We were talking about overspending, and you know, now we were starting to hear the rumors of people maybe not being paid, and there was defaults before this, and we're thinking, is that a one-off or is there something in this? Before the dam bust and we nearly had no club. I feel that we're probably coming into that investment question again, but from a different place. We're not rock bottom where we were, if you know what I mean. I think Dundalk Football Club is probably worth and valued a whole lot more. We're seem to have cut down a lot of the overheads and wages and some of the issues I think that we had previously. And I know we have certain amount of funding available for floodlights and pitch as well, probably need extra to go to that to do both of those jobs. Will probably need more funding or more investment for those things, and I know we have secured through Louth County Council another grant as well for toilet facilities. So like there could be work done. It probably needs more investment to bring it to another level. And that's not even talking about the football side of the club as well. So there's still some historical issues, and these historical issues always come down to facilities eventually with us. You know, it's the elephant in the room. No matter what owner comes in, I'm sure people have looked at Dundalk Football Club plenty of times now, and the one thing they would say is, well, what's the asset you own? It's never Oriel Park. It's the players, and that's it. And players come and go, and they lose valuation and things like that then as well. So I'm sure for some overseas investment or maybe even domestic, investment, to not have a tangible asset that you actually own to put a valuation on. That's a real, it feels like it's a real drawback to Dundalk. And I wonder if that's where, maybe that's why we haven't kicked on and got more investment in that part isn't there. Now that's me guessing. I could be completely wrong on it, but it's still a facilities thing holding back Dundalk, though, I feel, and it was facilities was holding us back under previous ownerships and everything else as well. So at some stage we've got to address this one way or the other.
Yeah, it's always been that, I mean, and look, you don't want to harp back to it all the time, but you're talking about the European runs and the money and all this kind of crack. And I think I called one night, I think, we were talking in very, very early podcast days where, Stephen Kenny probably at one time probably could have had a stand named after him. He'd done that much work, and at the stadium had him up, you probably could have had a Stephen Kenny stand, and there was that much buzz about the place, there's that much success. But it is the elephant in the room. It is something that, and look, I keep saying it, people slag Dundalk, and you see it on Twitter all the time. Stadium, nobody knows more than a dog fan how bad
we're there every week.
We know. We're not sure. We know exactly. It's water off a duck's back at this stage. We know what it's like. But yeah, it's something that probably again will look until it's sorted. It'll always creep up. It doesn't matter what we do on the pitch. It'll always rear its head. And look, it's something that's somebody the best in the world can't seem to get the grips with it. No. I don't know the answer to it. We definitely won't sort it on this podcast, Chris. But it just seems to be one of those things that even experts can't seem to wrap their brain around. It's just not a functioning entity as it sits. But look, it's something for somebody else to worry about, I suppose, and hopefully somebody else will worry about it. Because many people are frightened. But yeah, it's just one of them that's my dog. You can hear howling in the background there. Somebody's obviously going on a bike in the alleyway.
I think that's the opportunity to move on to maybe man of the match.
100%. Sean, you definitely want me to get my boots on. I couldn't even find them. I don't know where they are. Never mind trying to play with this one. I'm man of the match. Chris, you started off there. We'll get the ball rolling on it for Tony's Pizza.
Look, we probably kind of mentioned it once or twice already that there was plenty of comments and that coming in for man of the match. A couple for Cherry for one or two good saves in there. Groom got a couple of mentions as well for kind of a solid performance, but I think we needed a cool head to kind of bounce in there and be a solid thing at the back, especially after losing Vinnie Leonard to international duty. We talked about that's not the position he was probably signed for. But since J.R. Wilson came in, it allowed us to move Conor O'Keefe into the middle. I thought he had a very good game. We talked about, probably Mayowa was doing a lot of the hard work. And that's that kind of got us over the line and it allowed him to probably be a bit more progressive with his ball when he got it then as well. But for me it would be Conor O'Keefe also. I
think Mayowa was definitely I don't remember the last time we had anybody but Vinnie Leonard at centre back getting being in the run for a pizza. Now I did miss the last podcast, so I don't know who got the last one. But I think I would fully agree. I think Mayowa's had an excellent game. Even if you just look at, if nothing else, his distribution of his heading is absolutely unbelievable. Like, I mean, I don't think he's been. I'd love to see the stats on him. Is jumping for the season. I'd love to see how many times he's been outmatched for a ball. Like it's incredible. His reach is. He's an absolute machine at the back. But I do think coming in at centre back tonight, obviously Vinnie Leonard's a massive loss. I mean, considering the kid's only 6, is he still 16? Like he can't.
No, he's 17 now. We'll give him 17.
He must be getting old at some stage. He's Benjamin Button. But I think, I fully agree with Conor O'Keefe. I think the night that was in it, I thought he was excellent. I mean, look, he's got all the experience in the world. When we talk about experienced players in the group, we obviously go to Hogg and Dean Ebby at this level. Keith Ward, Abe Davin's been around for a young age. We've got Owen Kenny's got a couple of years under his belt at youth level and played maybe down at Wexford as well. But I mean, I think Conor O'Keefe really kind of showed a little bit of class and a little bit of experience. Look, probably got outrun once or twice late on in the game, but look, he was never known for pace. He knew how to play the game and read the game. And for me, I think I'd fully agree with Conor O'Keefe 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's plenty of comments in from there. I think we'll go for, someone a bit different for us. So Dara Tuhi messaged in there on Instagram. So congratulations, Dara. There is a 15-inch pizza in Tony's Pizzeria on us here on the podcast. And thanks as always to Vinny and the rest of the guys there in Tony's Pizzeria for their continued support on the podcast. I think they kind of are teasing out they might be doing something on their socials as well. So I mentioned it last week. So yeah, keep an eye across Tony's Pizzeria socials, and you might be in with a chance of winning this year's charity shirt from ourselves. So definitely keep an eye across that.
Neither of us have it on because I can't find mine, so I'm just got the white one on the white shirt. I
went through. Yeah, it's all right. Just kind of focus on for next week the Bray match. We talked about it a little bit already. Gally, like that, it just seems massive for me. Like I know we'll have a couple of players coming back, and someone will be later because I think am I right? Did I hear somewhere that Owen Kenny's match might not be Monday, Tuesday or something with the under-21, so he could be later coming back in that squad.
Yeah. Could be.
Might be an opportunity to keep Norman Garbutt then in the team. You might think if that's the case.
That's probably something we didn't even mention enough tonight to come back to get your first game and what would you say it started nearly 12 months? You know, I
think it's 14 months. I think James Rogers had it.
And so, like, you know, you can see what he brings to it. You can see the pace he has, the eye for pass. He's a really, really sharp player. It was almost like he's been in and out all season, but it's almost like a new signing. I mean, look, it's probably not. It hasn't been probably the game for them to get the result. But again, a player we probably haven't even mentioned enough tonight. Hopefully, we might give him out a pizza if he gets a run in the game over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, again, a great player to have, another option for Kieran and Ken to have off the bench. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I would expect to see a host of changes back in Oriel Park as well, which, you know, you like to think the games are now running out, and we've only a handful of games there now. So you'd like to think that we can rally around and get a good crowd up to that, really create an atmosphere, and to get the lads over the line. Like the crowd sounded good there tonight as well. All credit to everyone who travelled as well tonight. Fair play to them. But you do need one of those nights in Oriel, don't you? Like we've been there. We've down the years that they've happened, and I'm thinking, you know, late winners against Rovers, stuff like that. We've been there before, and you're bouncing out of Oriel Park. That's what we need for this one.
100%. I mean, look, ideally you want that every game, but now we're in the business end of it, and let's be honest, we've probably been in the business end of it since July. But you're into the last, like I said, the lower single digits of games to go, and you know, ironically, Bray, if you listen to this podcast at all, we were talking about them all season, you know, how they used to be our bogey team and they're going to come back and haunt us now. But at Oriel, I mean, we should be beating anybody. We probably beat most, on our day, we beat most Premier Division teams at Oriel. Obviously not when we were in the Premier Division, but the run out at the minute, you know, we're about a year too late looking to play Premier Division teams. But I just think if we can get the buzz back, what do we do? Is it the 12th? Is that right? 12th of September. We just get get as many people up to Oriel Park as we can fit in, because it's, in a way, it's almost like a cup final. I mean, look, it won't be the end of the league, you know, unless there's a raft of results, but it's going to be right there. You're right in there. You know, like Danny did say, you know, if you win this game, you really have a grasp on it. You know, you're so close, it's frightening. You know, the boys will be tasted, but obviously they'll take it one game at a time. We each as fans would be like, right, let's get up here, win this league at Oriel Park. Because I think is it at Lone then after that, or that's the second? I can't remember the game after that.
UCD. Oh no, Longford away, UCD at home, Athlone away, Finn Harps at home, and then Cove away. So this is one of the last 3 games at home. So yeah, if you want to get into that buzz, to say you were there this year.
I think Cove is treaty at home as well, so they'll be of an eye in that match as well. So that's a good game. It's a good set of fixtures, but we got to look after what we do first. We got to look after our game.
We'll definitely talk about this next time as well. But you know what I just realised? We're playing Longford away in a fortnight, and that means that's a Saturday game. It's the first time we're going to have the pressure of those other results of happening before us, going into that. So it's going to be huge now to get a result in that Bray match to either equal or better whatever Cove do. and then you got to do it again. But it's not like you're clock watching or trying to keep an eye on another team that night. It's done and dusted. So if you don't have everything done right, you could be loading yourself with pressure going into that Longford game, and that'd be pressure we haven't had and we haven't seen in quite some time. So that's why I just feel that
that's what you want, though. You want that.
It's got a final kind of vibe to it now. Yeah, you're kind of bigging yourself up for it, but it's just so important. It's a Bray match.
Yeah,
and that's what we got to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Look, we've gone on. You're nearly the 50-minute man, like El Steph here. Coming up to 50 minutes, it's time to take you off. Look, that'll be us for this week. Thanks everyone for all their comments in. Thanks to Vinny and everyone up in Tony's Pizzeria for our man of the match competition, and thanks to Dara Tui for winning that competition tonight. Thanks for coming in. Thanks to we will hopefully, it's kind of hard knowing whatever's happening this before the end of the season, but we'll hope to have some sort of an end of season show. So Mark Harlan's been in contact where we'll do something at some stage on that. We have to wait and see how this season goes and finishes. Gally had already ordered some party hats. Now they're on hold. So we wait and see. And thanks as always to Donald Green and Dundalk Village for their overall sponsorship of the podcast. That is us for this week, and that only leaves us one thing left, and that is come on the town.
My black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white scarf, my black and white, yeah.